After 26 years refining production lines, the plant manager said I was too slow and pushed me out. They said the plant never stops. 26 years, and I kept it humming like a heartbeat. Then came the new manager, tight suit, tighter smirk. "Efficiency needs youth," he told the room. I packed my box, said nothing. Weeks later, I watched the emergency alert blink red. One missed valve, flooded systems, millions lost. He choked on water and excuses. I joined Tasmac Industries, fresh out of vocational school, 22 and eager. Back then, the plant was more rust than chrome, more chaos than system. My job? Junior line technician, which mostly meant fixing what others broke. I kept my head down, learned fast, asked smarter questions than most bosses had answers for. Over time, I became the go-to guy. I understood the heartbeat of every assembly line, every pneumatic hiss, and every pressure gauge twitch. When things went wrong, they came to me before they checked the schematics. I didn't bark orders. I solved problems, quietly, consistently, and I loved it. I skipped the spotlight. I never aimed for the front office. But I rebuilt Line B from scratch, rewired half the automated welding units, and designed the shutdown override protocol they still use. No plaque, just another shift the next morning. My marriage didn't last. She said I loved machines more than people. Maybe she wasn't wrong. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, a funeral. The plant ran 24/7, and so did I. Still, I had purpose, and in a way, Tasmac was the only place that ever felt like mine. I trained 5 plant managers over the years. They rotated out, promoted or burned out. I stayed. I adapted. I made them look good. So when the 6th walked in, 34, full of confidence and buzzwords, I thought nothing of it. Just another suit, another season. I was wrong. This one wasn't passing through. He came to clear house. It started with a meeting, no warning. Just an invite in my inbox titled Efficiency Review. I showed up with a clipboard and system charts. He showed up with HR. His name was Darren Cottrell, MBA from somewhere fancy, 0 plant floor experience. He called me Mr. Silverson, like I was a relic. Sat across from me, fingers steepled like he was about to deliver sermon or sentence. "We've been reviewing your KPIs," he began, not bothering to look at me. "Your throughput numbers are solid, but your changeover times lag behind the team average." I blinked. "We've had 5 system upgrades in the last 6 months. That skews data." He smiled like he'd expected that. "I appreciate your commitment to legacy systems, Jamie, but this is a performance culture. Efficiency needs youth." He actually said it, out loud, like it was some slogan on a breakroom poster. HR slid the papers across. "You're being offered early retirement with full benefits," she said softly, as if kindness made it better. Didn't argue. No speech, no flinch. I just looked at Darren, memorized his smug little nod, packed my locker that afternoon, walked past Line C, still calibrated with my specs, and out through the security gate. The last thing he said as I left? "No hard feelings. We just need to modernize." I didn't even look back, but in my gut I knew something was coming, not because of anger, because I knew what he didn't. 2 weeks out, I was restless. I'd never taken a vacation longer than a long weekend. Now every morning felt like a punishment. No line startup, no hum of motors, just silence and coffee that wasn't from the vending machine, but habit dies hard. I still checked the maintenance logs. The younger techs didn't change the passwords. I'd trained most of them. I wasn't spying, not at first. Just curious. That's when I noticed the alerts, small ones at first. Inconsistencies, valves not properly logged during shift turnovers, pressure readings spiking briefly and then vanishing. I knew those sensors. Those weren't malfunctions, they were being ignored. Line D's coolant circulation had a known quirk. If the backup valve wasn't flushed manually every 14 days, build-up could trigger false pressure readings and, in extreme cases, failure. Darren had flagged it months back as non-essential maintenance. I'd explained why it mattered. He nodded, then removed it from the checklist anyway. "Redundancies cost up time," he'd said. Now I saw the log. Day 15, no flush. Still, I said nothing. Not yet. Until I got a call from Matteo, one of the shift leads I mentored. He kept his voice low. "They're ignoring the backup flush again," he said. I reminded Darren. He said, "If it hasn't blown by now, it won't." That was the crack. TASMAC was built like a circulatory system. One blocked valve could backflow into the entire subsystem. It wouldn't be immediate. It would build slowly, pressure, heat, stress, and then one missed valve, one flash flood, one manager gasping to explain why his push for efficiency drowned a $6.2 million line. I met Matteo at an old diner off Route 14, the kind of place where the coffee tastes like it's been percolating since Nixon was in office. He slid into the booth across from me, eyes scanning the room like we were trading state secrets. "You weren't wrong," he said. "No preamble." "Line D's acting up again. There's backflow in the system," Darren ordered. The alert silenced. I stared at him for a moment, processing. Silenced, as in deleted? Scrubbed from the main log. But I saved a copy. Off-site. I leaned back, exhaled slowly. Matteo was sharp, quiet, observant. I'd trained him to log redundancies, not override them. Now he was using those same instincts to watch the rot bloom. Who else knows, he hesitated. A couple techs. One of the night shift supervisors, Jay, tried to raise it. Darren wrote her up for creating unnecessary panic. Of course he did. This wasn't mismanagement. It was calculated risk-taking disguised as innovation, and people were too green or too scared to push back. I sipped the bitter coffee. "You got me logs, timestamps, screenshots?" Matteo slid a flash drive across the table. I nodded. "Let's build a file." The next week I paid a visit to someone I hadn't seen in years, Lynette Rhodes, former TASMAC compliance officer, retired after 29 years, still sharp as shattered glass. She raised an eyebrow when she saw me. "Jamie Silverson, I thought they'd buried you under the foundation." "Early retirement, courtesy of Darren Cottrell." Her eyes narrowed. "That little clipboard jockey?" I smirked. "He's worse than that." She poured whiskey into 2 chipped glasses and motioned for me to talk. When I finished, she set her glass down, untouched. "They scrubbed safety logs, ignored backup flush protocols. That's federal liability. If the system floods, they won't just lose money. They'll face OSHA, EPA, and probably DOJ. I pulled out Matteo's flash drive. "Want to help me make their week hell?" She grinned. "Thought you'd never ask." We worked quietly. Lynette knew the old channels, the internal pathways whistleblowers could use without waving red flags. Matteo passed us updated reports using burner emails. Jay looped in after her second write-up, her fear overridden by pure frustration. Others followed, quiet voices who had seen enough to know something was wrong but didn't know how to act. Darren, meanwhile, doubled down. He pushed for automation rollouts without proper vetting, killed preventative maintenance routines. Modern. Problems need modern speed, he liked to say, but the factory wasn't a startup. It was a living organism built on legacy systems, old metal and protocols written in hard-won blood. And now, under his leadership, it was ticking. Not if, when the first real scare came on a Monday. 3:42 a.m. Matteo called. "No greeting, Jamie. Coolant overflow triggered the floor sensor on line D. They silenced the alarm." Again, I sat up, fully awake. "Overflow?" "Yeah." Pressure spiked. Secondary relief valve didn't engage. Darren told maintenance to handle it locally and stop crying wolf. I didn't swear, I just wrote it down. By noon, Matteo was issued a formal warning for insubordination. 2 days later, Jay was demoted to floor operator. The message was clear. Loyalty meant silence. Anything else earned consequences. Lynette and I escalated. She pulled strings with her old contacts at the regional OSHA office. I compiled a timeline, layered with logs, screenshots, and suppressed incident reports. But the evidence wasn't enough. It needed a smoking gun. One instance of direct causal negligence leading to an incident. And still, we were gambling against time. Because TASMAC didn't just run on steel and process flow, it ran on reputation. If we misfired, they'd bury the scandal under NDAs and legal muscle. Meanwhile, Darren was thriving. He gave interviews to local business journals, grinning in front of new touchscreen dashboards he didn't understand. Called the old guard clunky but dependable, referred to legacy engineers as mechanical romantics. said the future was in predictive AI maintenance. Problem? He didn't budget for retraining. He pulled most of the analog backups without confirming digital redundancy. We learned that the secondary coolant containment pump, a safeguard system, had been disabled to save electricity. 10 cents an hour, Matteo said grimly. That's what our safety is worth to them. Then came the corporate review. Tasmac HQ sent down an exec, Teresa Vu, known for two things, turnarounds and terminations. Darren paraded her through the plant like royalty, showing off his metrics. Output was up 3.2%, labor costs down 8%. He neglected to mention those gains came from deferred safety protocols and doubled line rotations. I waited, wondered if she'd see it. She didn't. Instead, she praised the operational agility, called Darren a case study in lean manufacturing. I wanted to laugh or scream. But Lynette, always calm, just said, "Good. Let them feel invincible. They never see it coming when they think they've won." Still, it stung. Jay stopped replying to emails. Matteo started talking about quitting. Even I began to doubt. The breaking point wasn't dramatic. It was a photo. Matteo sent it late one night. A snapped image from his phone, a maintenance checklist on a clipboard, 3 signatures, 1 valve, not flushed. Again, then, a note scribbled in Darren's handwriting. Just override. It won't. Matter unless it breaks. Underlined twice, there it was, arrogance in ink. The line between negligence and intent crossed. I forwarded it to Lynette. "Enough!" Her reply came 1 minute later. "1 valve. Let's open the floodgates." The revelation didn't arrive as a grand epiphany. It arrived as schematics. I was sorting through archived maintenance manuals when I found them. Old. Pressure regulation blueprints. These were the original fail-safes we installed 15 years ago, before cost-cutting stripped them down. I cross-referenced those with the current digital logic Darren implemented. That's when the flaw emerged. It was microscopic, an outdated dependency in the valve control subroutine. The system assumed manual flush had occurred every 72 hours. But Darren's AI overlay, his so-called smart logic, had overridden that assumption. The software no longer checked for manual flush confirmation. No warning, no alarm. It was inevitable, and it was invisible, unless you knew what to look for. I pieced it together like a puzzle. Darren didn't understand what he had unplugged. He thought AI integration was plug and play. But without sensor redundancy, any manual failure triggered a silent chain reaction. The pressure would build without notice until the pipe seams fractured, a quiet countdown to catastrophe. I drove to Matteo's place at 10 p.m. He opened the door, half asleep. "Bring up the valve logs," I said. Past 90 days, he didn't ask why, just handed me his tablet. 15 instances of unlogged flush cycles. 5 of those fell within the 72-hour window. It wasn't just a mistake. It was engineered negligence. Lynette and I regrouped. We compiled everything, the schematics, the photos, the logs, Darren's override notes. She built a forensic packet that traced failure modes to cost-saving decisions, linked every skipped maintenance to Darren's written directives. We included the final piece, a flow rate simulation showing precisely how a flood would occur. Valve, or B location, subsection 3, risk, back pressure overflow through the containment trench, straight into the main control room. She stared at the monitor and said flatly, "If it fails, it's not just equipment. It's lives. Can we stop it?" She didn't blink. "No, but we can make sure it gets documented." We uploaded the entire packet to an encrypted cloud share with time-stamped access and legal redundancy. One copy went to a lawyer, Lynette, trusted from her regulatory days. Another to a whistleblower contact at the State Industrial Bureau. And then we waited, not to stop the flood, but to make sure when it happened, there'd be no hiding it. That week, Darren posted on LinkedIn a photo of him at the control deck with Teresa Vu captioned, "Future of manufacturing, driven by vision, not nostalgia." I screenshotted it, because very soon he'd be looking at those same control panels in a very different light, ankle deep in water, choking on excuses, scrambling for answers he never understood to begin with. The trap wasn't set with malice. It was set with truth, and truth doesn't need to shout, it just waits to be seen. The storm hit on a Thursday. Torrential rain hammered Tasmac's eastern flank, and drainage systems strained by years of deferred upgrades choked under the weight. Inside the plant, everything looked fine, until it wasn't. Valve 4B, that's where it began. The control room logs later showed pressure anomalies at 9:43 a.m., minor at first. By 10:12, back pressure exceeded the critical threshold. Automated. Fail-safes didn't trigger. Darren's AI overlay had filtered the sensor alerts as non-priority noise. He was in a strategy meeting when the first containment breach hit. Water surged through subsection 3 like a snapped artery. The maintenance corridor turned into a canal. Within 7 minutes, it reached the primary control room. 2 operators were almost electrocuted. The emergency power relay failed. Lights died. Screens blinked to static. Chaos. Darren burst into the operations bay, barking orders. But no one had answers. The logs weren't showing anything useful. His smart system had suppressed all diagnostic redundancy. He tried to override manually, but the system lagged. Latency from his own streamlined codebase. The AI's predictive models had no contingencies for analog failure. Too fast to stop, too slow to understand. And then, silence. When the floodwaters tripped the main breakers, everything stopped. Conveyor, belts, robotic arms, sorting tracks. Tasmac's fully automated lifeblood drained to zero in under 15 minutes. I was home, watching it unfold on my screen. I hadn't planned it for that day, but I didn't need to. The system simply obeyed its broken instructions. By noon, the footage was everywhere. Plant workers filming waist-high water cascading down corridors. One technician screaming over radio that someone had slipped and broken their arm. OSHA's emergency alert lit up inboxes. Potential systemic negligence, immediate investigation warranted. And then my packet hit the inboxes. Whistleblower file, time-stamped, signed, cross-referenced logs, simulation footage of Valve 4B's, projected failure, schematics showing Darren's code changes, and the removal of triple redundancy. I hadn't accused anyone, I'd simply shown the math. At 4:16 p.m., I got a call from a blocked number. Darren's voice was jagged. "Jamie, I know you're behind this." I said nothing. "We didn't know, I didn't. Look, there's going to be an inquiry, but maybe we can handle this internally, quietly. You still know this system better than anyone." Still. Nothing, then. "Jamie, please." And I finally spoke. "Efficiency needs youth, remember? You said that." Click. "Floods are noisy things. But the silence afterward? That's what people remember. Especially when it's full of questions they never thought they'd have to answer." A month passed. Tasmac's legal team tried to salvage their reputation, but the damage was done. The state investigation confirmed what we all knew. It wasn't the storm that caused the flood. It was systemic neglect. Darren was removed from his position, though not without a fight. The company issued a statement blaming unforeseen software complications. But the truth was out. I wasn't in the office when the layoffs came. I wasn't in the office at all. After everything unraveled, I got an offer from an old contact in the industry, a competitor who'd been watching closely. They needed someone who understood the intricacies of old-school production lines. Someone who didn't just rely on buzzwords like efficiency or optimization. I took the job. Tasmac's stock took a dive, but I wasn't watching it. As for Darren, his LinkedIn profile disappeared first, then his professional reputation followed. Word spread through the industry faster than the floodwaters. No one wanted to hire someone who let an entire facility go under without even understanding why. I had made my peace. My job wasn't to save Tasmac. It was to ensure that it couldn't just wash away its mistakes, and that in the end was enough.